I want to cover your whole face. That's the whole point.
You jerk. Rocco.
What?
Not even making this up. What's my favorite desktop environment? Say it. Do it.
4 letters, nice and easy.
Xfce.
You got it, man.
Whatever.
Good choice.
Yep.
All right. Is everybody ready?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Welcome to another episode of Destination Linux podcast.
Welcome to episode 45. I'm Rocco.
And I'm Ryan.
And this is Destination Linux. This week we're going to be covering, well, we got a little bit of change of plans. This week we have a special guest with us.
Really special guest, especially for me.
Why would it be special for you, Ryan?
Because everybody knows my favorite desktop environment is Xfce. Now, sometimes some smart aleck, non-so-smart people think they could come in and make fun of me for that at times. Because they don't know what they're doing. Yeah. But the true pros, the winners, use Xfce, and we have Sean Davis here. Greatest episode yet.
That's it. So Sean Davis is web developer by day, Batman by night.
There you go, man.
He is the Xubuntu Technical Lead. He is an Xfce core contributor. He is an Ubuntu member. He's all over the place. He is a contributor to several apps, including Catfish, Light Locker settings, MenuLibre, Mugshot, Parole media player.
Keep going, Rocco. Keep
There's
going.
Tons of stuff that he's involved in. And he's also someone that I'm going to start out by saying, I'm sorry for all of the things I've said about Xfce.
But I think it's important that you caveat that with, you went back to Xfce because I fell in love with it.
Yeah.
And you're starting to change of heart, aren't you?
Well,
things aren't what you thought they were.
Sean, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you.
So, first question, Sean, where and when did you start using Linux? So what was it that got you kind of started? I told you about my journey. Rocco told you about his. What made you get into Linux?
I was really big in like open source software kind of prior to even getting into Linux, using, Netscape and Firefox and Game, and then, finding more and more of these apps, and then, learning about Linux and like GTK and stuff. And it's like, oh, well, all of this can look nicely together,
Mm-hmm.
So I spent the time and I downloaded my first, I think it was probably PC Linux OS, loaded it up, tried to connect to the internet, and having dial-up, having net zero, there was no client to connect to the internet.
Wow.
And immediately had to go back to Windows and wait for a time later in the future. Eventually we got DSL, and I started hopping around between OpenSUSE and PC Linux OS and the various Ubuntus.
Nice.
All right, so you started contributing to Xubuntu in 2011, I believe. And I got to say, I love the Blue Saber name. That's your Twitter handle. Is there any significance to that?
When I initially came up with the handle, I was playing a lot of Mega Man X, and Zero is an awesome character in that game, and he has a lightsaber, and kind of ripped off that.
Nice.
See, we were guessing before the show. I said, I think it's probably Star Wars because I think Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin had the blue lightsaber. So but it's still geeky, so it's still great.
Oh yeah,
still love it. All
right, so you're a Linux user, okay? How do you get involved in becoming a developer for Xfce?
I started reporting a ton of bugs to Xubuntu. Started out with some artwork related bugs, and then usability issues, and I just kept spamming Launchpad with all these bug reports.
Nice.
And then Simon Steinbase, one of the Xfce and Ubuntu guys and Shimmer project guys, is like, hey man, you've got all these issues. Why don't you come on to IRC? Let's have a chat. Let's work all this out. And so he pulled me in the IRC, and I kind of stayed there. And then as some bug reports came in for like Catfish and Parole, I chimed in, oh yeah, I know Python. I could take a look at that. Shortly after, I'm the Catfish maintainer. Oh yeah, I know C. Shortly after, I'm the Parole maintainer. And it just
nice.
kind of all went downhill from there.
All right. So in 2014, you became the Xubuntu Technical Lead. So what do the job duties of a technical lead include?
Primarily, I'm kind of the one helping to make the Xubuntu team and the community's, dreams a reality by, packaging up, application updates, looking at bug reports, figuring out, if we can resolve them, how can we do it? Are there better alternatives maybe? And then kind of, as the years have gone by, my role has kind of gotten bigger, and, I've been working with like the development blueprint and planning for each release, and kind of coordinating with Ubuntu and Debian developers and Xfce, just kind of all in the middle there.
So, let's talk about Xfce a little more. One of the features that really made me fall in love with Xfce, because being a new Linux user, number one, I always loved everything prepackaged. Your typical KDE, everything's beautiful out of the box. You don't touch it, and it's done for you. I don't know what it was. Well, I do know what it was, but Xfce's customization ability was the first one where someone was like, hey, go try this, and you can customize stuff. Where I didn't have all these panels everywhere that I didn't know what they did, and I messed it up so bad that I couldn't get back to the original. Things just made sense. Like if you right-click on the time, you could change it to 24 hours. You right-click on the panel, you can add a new panel. Like everything is where it logically should be. And I feel like that is a key differentiator for Xfce compared to other so-called customizable desktop environments that I've tried. But I was really curious, is this something that you guys, that's just your style of coding and you don't even think about it? Or do you guys purposefully look at Xfce and say, we've got to be able to make it so that you can get into this stuff, very easily and not mess it up, even if you're a new person?
I think a big part of it is that Xfce's development team and contributors, and it being a community project, we've got artwork people, we've got sysadmins, we've got everyday users, we've got people using it in the workplace, and we all come together and we talk about these software projects and how can we make it better. We implement a new feature and we ask around, well, what do you guys think? Are there any issues with this? How can we make it better? And I think it's because we've got such diversity in our team that, we've got this ability to really produce something that makes sense and while still being customizable.
Right. And do you feel that customization that it's something that I noticed, but I was curious, is that something you guys feel is one of your key differentiators for Xfce, or what do you think is some of the key differentiators for Xfce versus another desktop environment like Gnome or KDE?
For one, the customization, I think is a big key of Xfce and what sets it apart. The other big thing with Xfce is that it's really modular. You can pull in components from any other desktop environment or any other applications and just tie them in, and it feels right. It works with the whole package set. If there's something that maybe the Xfce version of an application is not as good as the Gnome version, you can pull in that Gnome version. It's still going to tie in with the desktop and work just as well.
Good point.
So how closely involved with Xfce is the core Gnome components? Because you hear all the time where Gnome, in decisions that they might make, might break certain things. So are they closely tied together where they affect you as far as when they do something, when they update something that might break something you're doing?
Yes.
The short answer is yes.
So Xfce is built on top of GTK. The Gnome Foundation is basically the people maintaining GTK. So as there's multiple changes with each new GTK release, especially during like the GTK 3, every 6 months there's a new release, and there'd be various features that would come and go or would be renamed. So for Xfce, which doesn't have a specific GTK version, we have to support numerous GTK versions. So for a while, our minimum was GTK 3.6. So to support through 3.22, we'd have if it's 3.6, we're going to do this. If it's 3.8, we have to do this. If it's 3.10, we have to do this.
Wow.
And our code is huge because of it. So yeah, short answer, yeah, Gnome makes all the differences or all these changes to the toolkit, and then we have to adapt to support it.
That's interesting. So, one of the things that I heard mentioned a lot about Xfce, especially in my early years, was, it's a lightweight desktop environment. The interesting thing about that is, I have what I call my beast of a machine, my, i7, 32 gig DDR4, just the works. And then I've got a Ryzen build. And when I always saw the word lightweight, one of the things I wanted to bring to Linux when I was doing my channel is I wanted to show that Linux is just not awesome for reviving an old computer, but it's awesome on the latest stuff.
Right.
And that lightweight word always made me avoid any distro or desktop that said lightweight, because I was like, that's for old stuff. But I'm running it on my beast, and it's amazing. It just makes it that much more fast and snappy. But is Xfce, because I've heard people argue about this, is it really still considered a lightweight desktop environment? Or what is the standard for something calling itself lightweight? Because it has as many heavy components. It feels like, it's got all the options that a KDE or anything else has.
Right. It can be lightweight.
Okay.
Again, because of its modularity, you can literally have as much or as little as you want and still have a functional environment.
Gotcha.
With Gnome, a lot of the things like in the panel on Gnome are basically required. You can't remove them. They're running. There's not an option there. Everything in the Xfce panel, you add or remove it yourself. You can choose whatever you want and drop whatever, is a pain.
Yeah. Well, it was funny because when I first, was using Xfce, I love docs. So I used one of the docs, like Docky or something. You're talking about everything working in Xfce. So I put that up there, and then somebody commented on my video, like, why don't you just create a panel doc? And I'm like, why didn't I think of that? So now everything's just panelized. But I was so used to having to install other applications to do stuff like that. It just didn't even cross my mind until they mentioned it. So it's just got so many options and things you can do with it in there and pull in and out. That's just why I love it so much. All right, Rocco, what do you got?
Well, Xfce has an update schedule for, it's a slower update schedule. This is one of the critiques of Xfce. So do you feel that it's slow, and what could be done to, or is there even consideration to make it faster, or is you going for the stability in that slow update process, or how does that work?
I think a big part of that critique is that we don't have a whole lot of developers, particularly nobody's being paid to work on Xfce full time. We're all doing it secondary to our lives and our jobs and living in general. And then, like I mentioned before with GTK, there's a lot of challenges to basically push out updates quickly because, we're supporting multiple versions. And, like right now, we kind of get the critique, Xfce is finally moving to GTK 3. GTK 4 is due in a year.
I don't know. I don't think I've ever heard anybody say that.
Liar.
Sorry.
But yeah.
So is it something where you think if you guys had more, are you guys looking for more developers, or are you guys happy with the way the release is? Because I hear that critique. People always say that. That's their number one thing when they're joking. A lot of people joke about, we always in our Telegram group mess around with whatever anybody installs. We're like, oh, junk, worthless. It's just kind of messing. But one of the things that people will always throw out is, Xfce, look forward to never having an update. And I'm like, yeah, but guess what? It's never broke either. So
right.
that's the kind of the comeback. But is that something you guys would love to change eventually? Would you like to get more developers in there? If people who listen to this are interested, is it open to that? Or are you guys more like, hey, we've got our group, we work well, not really open to having a bunch of new people in here?
Yeah, Xfce is totally a community project. We love developers. We love patches. We love feature requests, preferably with patches.
Right. Yeah.
And we're always ready to have more people come and join in, and we're really open to other development teams helping out.
Awesome.
Well, everything you guys do, like I bust on Xfce mostly because of Ryan, mostly because he uses it. If he was using Deepin, I would bust on Deepin because it's him. But because, like I said, I personally like Xfce. There are certain things about it that I can't get it the way I want it, so I don't run it. But what does a typical day? I mean, going back to, you said that it's all done by part-time work as far as everybody has day jobs, and I get that. So what does a typical day in your life look like? You go to work, you come home, and you jump right on the computer and start messing with Xfce, or, you know, like, what does a typical Sean Davis day look like?
Depends on the day. But generally, I'm a morning person, like ultra early. I get up at 5.
Wow.
I get up at 5 and I'll check my email. I'll send messages and stuff. Like, particularly because the Xubuntu team, most of us are in Europe. 2 of us or 3 of us are not. So we get up and they're already started their days and they've already sent us messages. Hey, we found these bugs. Hey, you know, when's this getting fixed? You know, I start that communication. You know, if I've got time, I'll write some code. Go to work, come home, and if I'm not burnt out from work that day, I'll sit down, I'll work on Xfce and Xubuntu for a couple hours. Otherwise, I'll sit down and play video games and ignore everything else.
So you're a gamer. What kind of games do you play?
Right now, what am I playing right now? Right now, I'm playing The Witcher 3.
Oh, nice, man.
The game's awesome. Enjoying it very much.
So good.
Well, I would say what games I'm playing now, but they might not run on Linux, so.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said anything.
It's a no box situation.
Tuxcart. Let's play Tuxcart.
Tuxcart, yes. It's updated, you know.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll get back. Maybe we'll get back to the gaming part of it. But you guys are, you know, you said you work with a couple developers, but you have to coordinate everything between the core Xfce to Xubuntu to, you also work with the Shimmer project. So how does all that collaboration work? Is it, I mean, how difficult is it to get everything coordinated to work together? You know, you're all working towards a common goal. So how do you do all that, man?
For that particular example, Xfce, Xubuntu, and Shimmer actually gets a lot easier because Posse and Simon, who are the Shimmer project guys, are also Xubuntu artwork guys, are also Xfce contributors.
Oh, so nice.
Yeah, so they're kind of central to all of this, and they make it work because, you know, oh, you know, here's a new project, you know, what do we need to do for theming? Oh yeah, just do this, you know. Or, hey, you know, what new Xfce components should we bring in the next Xubuntu release? Oh, well, this has issues, you know, this is working really well. Okay, let's look at that. You know, it's really convenient having those two aboard.
Yep. Well, I believe the Shimmer project, they had something to do with, I guess it's G Music browser was the first time I heard of them. They had, I guess, maintained it after the original developer left it. I think that's how it went. So I got used to seeing the name, the Shimmer project, because of that, because that was, now another one is, but that was my favorite music player for the longest time because it's like Xfce. It's so customizable. Right. You can make it anything you want and it doesn't have any problems with large music libraries. So,
right.
You know, let me go back to that, talking about, you know, getting developers and people involved in the project. One of the things that would keep me from wanting to jump in, let's say I went and I knew Python kind of well, you know, I self-taught, can make a couple programs or something with it, but I would be scared to death if that was the case to even be like, hey, Sean, can I join Xfce? I can write, you know, I can write a clock. You know, how does that work? How could somebody approach the team who has some skill, or even if they don't have a super amount of skill, but they want to work on Xfce or something? How does that all work?
Well, we do have like some contributor docs, both on xfce.org and also on Xubuntu.org. But generally, you know, we invite everybody to come to Xfce Dev on Freenode. And we've had people with a lot of experience come in. We've had people, you know, with very little experience. And they ask questions and we help guide them to find the solution, provide patches, and eventually, you know, be full-time contributors.
Nice. That's awesome.
So there's always some way to contribute, regardless.
That's right.
Yep.
So the mouse logo in the whisker menu. Now, I can't show you my wallpaper, but even my wallpaper, just to taunt Rocco, is full of Xfce stuff. But the mouse logo, where did that come from?
Yeah, so when you guys sent me this question, I didn't know off the top of my head.
Nice.
So conveniently on, Olivier Forden, the original developer, founder of Xfce, still hangs around. So I asked him, and he had a pretty simple answer. It was designed by a designer who is working for CSM. Not sure what CSM is, but she made several different icon designs, and he chose that one.
Nice.
And it's just stuck forever.
That's awesome.
So does he contribute any more to Xfce?
He does. He's actually the maintainer for the window manager. He's also working at Red Hat, and he's worked closely on the Wayland project and stuff. So he's familiar with that. So we have a direction forward when we start thinking about Wayland.
Well, that was my next question. When do you think that is even a possibility to head towards Wayland?
I think we're thinking about it after we finish up Xfce 4.14. Kind of the goal for this release was get everything moved to GTK 3. Don't change things very much. Just make it everything Xfce 4.12 in GTK 3 and working, hopefully.
Right.
So even with that Wayland support, so Rocco and I both run NVIDIA. We both installed Ubuntu Gnomes, the new Ubuntu Gnome when it came out.
Yeah.
The first thing it does is switch you back to X because it's not compatible with the NVIDIA.
Right.
So what is the big rush with everybody wanting to throw something that's half-baked? I mean, it's not like half of your population doesn't run NVIDIA. Any thoughts on that? I mean, it's frustrating to me because it's like there's this big push to Wayland, and I'm excited about it. Don't get me wrong, but until NVIDIA supports, and they're blaming each other, there are two sides to it. One saying it's NVIDIA's, but until that works, to me, it's dead on arrival because 50% of your users run NVIDIA or more.
Yeah, I feel the same. And like listening to a few other podcasts, we're like, well, since Ubuntu's making this big push with, 1710, getting everybody or as many as they can on Wayland to start with, they've got this big user base. They're able to find a lot of issues and a lot of corner cases and stuff, and, maybe get Wayland support ready. I know KDE is also working on Wayland only, I think, for their next release. That's their goal. I think Xfce is going to sit back and watch and wait for all the issues to get worked out.
Smart.
Yep.
Very
absolutely. Smart. Well, I have a serious question. Okay, so I need
the rest of them were jokes. This is serious.
I need a serious answer. So, would you consider? I know you're a busy guy, but would you consider taking over and maintaining Hannah Montana Linux?
My answer for that has to be no. Not because of Hannah Montana.
Oh my gosh.
But because it's running KDE.
Wow.
There you go.
But you
if
could
they're using
fix that.
Xfce, maybe, But
If you maintained it, you could, maybe take KDE out of there and put Xfce in there.
I don't know. I feel like KDE is really central to their identity. So
now that you're a huge fan of Destination Linux, one of the things you'll notice is that there's a running joke with a lot of the content creators about Hannah Montana Linux that was started and even created a bunch of videos. All these YouTube
Who would create a video on Hannah Montana Linux, Ryan?
Me.
Oh, okay.
And then a bunch of people started creating videos on Hannah Montana Linux. And so it's been this joke that will not die that we just have to keep going because it's such a funny distribution. If you don't have a chance to look, there's a song written about Hannah Montana Linux. I'm not joking. Made by the developer. And it's so creepily hilarious.
Yeah.
It's so bad. All right.
Check that out.
What changes have you seen with Linux in the past few years from a desktop experience that make you excited for Linux as a whole? You kind of started out slowly and then you work now. You're a main developer for it. What are some things that you've seen change?
The good things, I think that there's been a real big push for improving design and usability with Linux. I feel like a lot of this has been spearheaded by Elementary, for example. Yep. They've definitely been designed first, and a lot of people are noticing, and a lot of people are watching that and going forward with that. And then also, like the Numix project where, they kind of had a design ethos. They wanted one consistent everything, following, kind of the Google design and, material and whatnot. Yeah. But, I think having a focus on a single design and improving usability, I think that's the biggest thing happening in Linux right now.
Yeah.
Well, I have to agree because, going from years ago and installing it, like you said, with the issues with the internet and stuff, usability was not there years ago. I mean, you had to be a technical geek in order to use it. And it's gotten to the point now where pretty much, well, not anybody, but pretty much anybody could install a Linux distribution and get it up and running. So
it's kind of funny because that reputation is still there. People are still like, I still get comments every once in a while like, yeah, good luck installing a game in Linux. And I'm like, you mean like clicking Steam install? Yeah. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, but I think that comes from years of people just trying it once, maybe years ago, and looking at it, seeing they have to do something with a terminal, and they're like, no way. Right. Like I actually talked to a guy that I used to work with, and I mentioned Linux to him, and most of the time I get, the deer in the headlight look when I mention Linux because nobody knows what I'm talking about. But there was one guy that said, oh yeah, isn't that thing you install, but do you have to install it with a terminal yet? And I'm like, no.
So it's funny you kind of mentioned that because last night I was watching Twitch, and one of the biggest Twitch streamers, which is a gaming streaming site for those who don't know, one of the biggest Twitch streamers carries about 35,000 viewers at night. Imagine that. I mean, he's selling out multiple stadiums worth of people just sitting there watching him play a game. So he's playing there. He's got mega machines because he's got all of these sponsors, and his machine keeps crashing, and he keeps getting clipping, and he can't fix he can't get his machine to run past 60 frames per second and all this stuff. And the entire time I kept thinking, if this was Linux, everyone would be blaming Linux.
Yes.
Right. But because it's Windows, it's the game developer's fault for everything, because it was a new game that he was trying out. And I think that that's another issue that we face is not only people who'd used Linux maybe once or twice way back in the day when it was only a terminal installer, very difficult. And also the fact that Linux gets blamed for things that it has nothing to do with Linux.
Right.
We have a question we always ask people, and it's a very, very important one. Are you a distro hopper?
I was. I've gone back on my ways. I've settled down with Ubuntu.
Wait, you didn't go back on your ways. You got reformed. You called the hotline. Yeah. You
That's right.
Took all the plans that we give out, and now you're good.
Yeah. Well, I mean, now I have a new issue. I'm a theme hopper now.
I love it. I love this guy.
So I'm constantly switching back and forth between Adwaita, Arc, Graybird, and Numix. Depending on the day, it's like, oh yeah, Numix looks awesome today. Or, oh, my screen's too bright. Let's go with Arc Dark. This is feeling good right now.
I love it. It's awesome.
Oh, my gosh.
That's exactly what I do. Two of you. That is exactly what I do. Like, I don't have a theme on my desktop for, maybe it may last, I don't know, a week or two. And then I'm going to switch. Right. It may last a day. I don't know. It depends. So,
but he's so particular, Sean, that if he finds like a pixel off in the menu, or the icon, that he puts a new icon theme in and there's a pixel wrong with one single icon, he'd be like,
I ain't that bad.
Trash, garbage.
I ain't that bad.
Yeah.
All right. So if you weren't a Xubuntu Technical Lead, if Xfce was no longer, what desktop environment might you run?
I'd probably use Elementary again. The fact that they're shooting for a consistent design. They too are kind of approaching this this lightweight environment that runs quick and throws out the fluff while still being usable. I have to appreciate the work that they're doing.
It's definitely a beautiful operating system. I can tell you that.
Yeah. So what do you think other popular desktop environments get wrong? I mean, obviously you see the other ones out there. And there's got to be times where you go, we're not going there. We're not going to do that. What are some things you think that they get wrong?
I hate the trash on Gnome.
Not to put you on the spot or anything.
Well, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. But I don't know. I feel like Gnome is kind of like the biggest doer of this thing where, they strip out features and, You know, they want to eliminate menus, so they move everything to one menu, and now there's too much stuff in that menu, so let's see what we can remove. Right. And, you know, every new release, you know, it's, oh, yeah, it looks a little bit nicer, but, you know, this much functionality has gone by the wayside. I also don't like how they've gotten rid of their desktop, and they hide, you know, the applications in the activities view, you know. Yep. It's not particularly great for multitasking as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
On the flip side of that, you've got KDE, which is in a lot of ways a lot more customizable than Xfce. But the configuration dialogues, there's so many options. There's so many things you can do. Mm-hmm. You never finish setting up your desktop.
You are so right in that. You could spend a week doing it and you still wouldn't be through it. I think the biggest problem I have with KDE is that there's no warning for all those settings. Like, right. Like half of them conflict with the other half. So it's not like you could just, like, once you start checking settings, you're never going to remember because there are so many. I mean, I have always touted KDE for the longest time as being the most customizable desktop. And it is. And it's awesome in what it does. Mm-hmm. But in that scenario where you have that many settings and you don't remember what you checked and what you didn't check, it can cause issues. So,
you know, I've never heard you say that before, Rocco, and it's so refreshing as a new user, because that was to hear you guys say this, because that was my biggest issue. I would constantly break stuff, and I thought it's just me. It's just me. I just don't get it. There would be things in there that you switch and other things break, and I thought really it was me. But then Xfce was the first time, like I said, I tried a desktop environment that's meant to customize where, and this is pretty dang impressive. You guys should be really proud of yourselves. I can't even break it. I mean, I've had this for, I don't know. I every time I do something with it, it's just things are at the logical place they should be. And I just can't get over stressing that enough in a desktop environment, because so many times people are putting things and hiding them in places. And it's like, why do I have to go through 3 menus to change the clock settings to 12 hours? I know that sounds silly and something simple, but it annoys me when I go into a desktop environment and I've got to go hunt for that. And Xfce, just right click on the time and change it. I mean, no big deal. And that's how I think things should be designed. As far as when I want to get technical and I want to start writing or coding or rendering and things, great, I can make those things, but simple things should just work. I shouldn't have to spend all this time doing that stuff.
Yeah, but that goes back to bringing new people into Linux. When you have so many settings that they're confused, or when you hide settings that should be simple enough to find, then you hurt yourself with newer users. When you have something like Xfce where it's plain out in the open, it's simple. I mean, my dad on,
you told the story, because I was going to bring it up.
I had my dad on Peppermint, and that's actually part Xfce, part LXDE, but I had him on Peppermint, and he said, you know, I want to try Xfce again because we used to run it.
Because you have an awesome host who uses Xfce, right?
Anyway, he used to run it, and he said, I want to try it again. So when the 1710 came out, I said, well, it was as good time as any to try it. So we tried it, and he absolutely loves it. So,
of course he does. He's smart. Yeah.
Well, there's no telling. There's no denying that.
Unfortunately, the apple fell far from the tree.
Wow. Did you hear that, Sean? Do you hear what I have to go through every week? Every week I go to
Hopefully he doesn't play that back to you later.
He will.
Over and over.
So if you do, one of the things I wanted to ask you, because, I do so many new computer builds and things, so I'm constantly reloading Xubuntu on a new machine. What are some of the cool things that you do to customize it? Like, what does a Sean Davis do to customize his desktop?
Well, over the years, I've kind of pushed the defaults a lot closer to my preference.
Nice. I guess you could do that when you're
and there haven't been a lot of complaints, so that's probably for the better.
Yeah.
But now the only thing I really do is I'll remove the window list from the top, and I'll install Plank, get that bottom dock like you were talking about earlier.
Same.
Because it just works well, and everything looks nice at that point, and it's effective.
Awesome.
Well, I must have my clock in the middle, so that's just
So do you do the 2 panels at the top to get the clock in the middle?
What should I do to get the clock in the middle? Sean?
What I recommend is actually having 3 panels at the top. Xfce will let you align them to the left, the center, and the right. And basically you can make the 2 side panels be like 40% wide and the other one 20%. And then you can center your clock in that one. And you've got your center clock, and you can put everything else on the left and right, and it just looks normal. It looks fine. There's no issues with it.
Nice. Yeah. Awesome. That's definitely something that I got to have. So
what new features are you excited about coming in Xfce? Can you give us some behind the scenes information that no other shows have gotten?
I don't know if I have that. A lot of the big things I like to write on my my blog about to let everybody know what's happening, or post screenshots to Twitter. I guess the big ones, I'm really happy with what we've done with the Pulse Audio plugin. I think that's a big deal. With the sound, it's basically a sound indicator clone, but it works well, and now we have control of it and make it a lot nicer, and customize it and tie it into the desktop. And there's been some big updates to the notification daemon lately. There's a new release just the other day. It's now got the ability to log notifications and do not disturb, so you can silence it and bring it back later.
Nice.
Really handy.
Very nice.
Yeah.
All right, so Xfce is obviously a popular desktop environment. It's on many distributions. Do you have one that is a particular favorite, or maybe one that you think tweaks Xfce the best out of all the distros?
I have a personal favorite. You may be able to guess it. Xubuntu is pretty great.
Yeah.
And then in the past, I've thought OpenSUSE had a good implementation on theirs, and Linux Mint Xfce, is more kind of Windows style, but again, they've configured it and they tweaked it, and it works really well with what they've done.
Right. Well, I can tell you that Manjaro Xfce is really, really good.
That's the one people push on me constantly. They're like, "Oh my gosh, if you love Xfce, try Manjaro's version."
They do a really, really good job at tweaking it out, man. They really do.
I'll have to check it out.
All right, so the roadmap to Xfce 4.14 is available. Some of the key components or changes that you guys have listed out there. All the components of core will be ported to GTK 3. Replace dbus glib with gdbus. I don't even know what that is, but it sounds fancy. Review icon names. Well, what is that? Let's start there.
So like the dbus stuff, basically the gdbus is the new latest version of the glib libraries, support for the dbus. It's just a lot cleaner code, and it's supported and will be supported going forward. So we port it now. We want to do it again, hopefully.
And then you've got review icon names in all components and use consistent naming. What is that specific to? I was curious.
So in the early days of GTK, there either was not a free desktop icon specification, or the Gnome developers ignored it entirely.
I can't believe that.
Yeah, right. So basically, for every single icon, there was a GTK dash prefixed version of it, and that was the standard that was expected to be used. And that still exists all over the place in Xfce. And the plan is to, look at the specification, get things that are standard, and then Xfce should look better with any other icon theme.
I like when things look better with other icon themes.
Oh yeah, that's a big one for Rocco. That's when we're going to win him over as a conversion. Use symbolic icons for panel plugins and apps where suitable, and replace deprecated widgets. That's a good one. So how do you see desktop computers changing in the next 10 to 20 years? And, what are some ways that you think Xfce or Linux is going to be a part of that big change?
Well, as more and more people get smartphones and tablets, as they become more powerful, as they become daily drivers and even daily computers for a lot of people, I think a lot of current and older desktop paradigms are going to go by the wayside and go for something that's more common for the two. And I think that we're seeing that a lot currently with Gnome, and what was going on with Unity, and even KDE is going for convergence now. And I think that's slowly where everything's going to be, something that could work both on touch or point and click effectively.
Are there any plans for Xfce to go mobile?
Not currently. I don't think any of our developers are scrambling to get it on their phone.
Okay.
I have seen people with virtual machines or remote desktops running it on their phones, and they're like, "Oh, look what I've done." And I know that's not a good thing because the touch points are not that big.
Right. Well, it's interesting because if what you're saying is true, and I believe it is, I work in the telecom industry, and the big idea behind it is to get into all of the screens that people are using and, get cellular chips in them and that type of thing. But there's a big convergence going on into the mobile market. We're even seeing some products we've talked about in the news where Samsung once again is going after the idea of taking the phone and then being able to dock it, and that becomes your desktop environment. It's very interesting because now these phones, they don't have the same power as a desktop clearly, but they're getting some impressive quad-core processors and 4 to 6 gigabytes of RAM. And I mean, the power is there. And certainly Linux world, you could run Linux on that.
Right.
So it seems like, it's going to be a natural move where people are going to have to look at what are we going to do with mobile? Because I would love to see a true Linux player in the mobile market. And I know some people are making some moves towards that. I'm sorry, I don't consider Android a true mobile player. It's Google's baby, and taking Linux and making it, an advertising tool. But, I really want a real Linux player in there, and I'm excited about that. And if it happens, I want to see Xfce on it. Just saying.
Well,
okay, well, I'll keep that in mind.
Yes, but there would
get to work.
Correct me if I'm wrong, though. There would be a ton of work involved with getting that to flow the right way, switching from desktop to mobile. Because of the screen size and everything and
right.
touch interface. So, I mean, do you really think that's a doable thing?
Well, I mean, this is where we actually have the benefit of the fact that we're using GTK. This is something that Gnome's really interested in, and they're pushing forward with. And, they're one of the partners on the Librem phone.
Right.
And as GTK becomes better suited for mobile and touch, Xfce will be able to adopt it a lot easier.
All right, so let's go back to the gaming avenue for a minute. So, you said you were playing Witcher 3. Is there any other? Are you a FPS guy? Are you an RPG guy?
I'm mostly an RPG guy. I actually didn't have a modern system. I had a PS2 until Final Fantasy 15 came out. Then I had a PS4, and the games I keep buying, and I can't seem to stop.
We have that same issue.
Oh yeah, we do. I was just looking through my Steam list here because I was just playing a game recently, Tyranny. Have you played that RPG yet,
I have
Sean?
not played that.
Oh my gosh. Don't. It's addictive.
Well, are you a controller guy or are you a keyboard and mouse guy?
I'm pretty good with either. I don't have a gaming rig, so right now I tend to gravitate to a controller, but my computer can handle Skyrim and games of that age right now, so I play those. Awesome. Keyboard and mouse.
You need an upgrade, dude.
I do. I need to work on that. I need to allocate my money better.
Well, you don't necessarily need an upgrade to play the game that me and Rocco are known for around the world, Rocket League.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I have played that.
Pro
on my
players.
computer. It plays. It runs.
We have to play Rocket League together.
Yeah, man. You've never seen. I mean, I don't know if you'll be able to keep up, Sean, because we are pro level, but we've won trophies.
Pretty much pro level.
Well, the trophies are us telling each other, "Good job, you finally didn't lose a game." We're terrible, Sean.
But we have fun playing it, so that's all that matters.
Absolutely.
Right.
So we talked before about contributing to Xfce, and you can do little things here and there. Do you have a donations link set up somewhere where people can actually donate funds to? What's the best way to donate? Time, money? What exactly does Xfce need? Or is it
we kind of need a little bit of everything. Right now, we don't really have a place to receive funds other than we have a bounty source where folks can go on there and they can contribute money for bugs to get fixed. And then another contributor can come in.
That's a good idea.
Present a patch for that. And then, if we roll it in, then they get the paycheck for that. So
Right.
It's a huge win-win for our contributors. You know, if they're wanting to come in, there's money available.
Right.
Which is, you know, a good incentive. Other than that, we need people that, you know, are willing to, you know, look for bugs or check our Bugzilla and see where we've got fixes and patches in play. You know, we need people out there to be able to test them and say, yeah, this works, or no, I found this issue, before we can get these fixes out to everybody. We also, we have a Transifix where we've got all of our translations. Xfce is a pretty localized project, but, you know, you can definitely use more all the time.
Well, I would suggest somehow, maybe some way, creating some type of PayPal link for people who may be not interested in, or maybe
not smart enough.
Yeah, maybe not able to contribute that way, but you know, maybe they have a couple dollars they want to throw your way. So,
I would like to figure out a way to get involved with it, not only to spite Rocco, but because I love the product so much. So, you know, but it is difficult between all the things that we do, the podcast and my channel and my real job and all of that, to figure out how, but there's got to be a tie in there somewhere. So I'll be looking through some of those opportunities and things that you said, because I just love it. I love Xfce. In fact, you know, I didn't want to bring this up, Rocco. This was not planned. Rocco has no idea about this. Neither does Sean.
What are you doing, man?
Rocco, I got you an early Christmas present that I was going to ship you. Do you remember the text I said where I need your address?
Yes, I do.
Well, I know this is unorthodox.
Where I gave you the wrong address?
Yeah, that one. I know this is unorthodox because generally for a Christmas present or something, you want to wait till Christmas. But how often do you get Sean Davis on your podcast?
Mm-hmm.
I figured this is the best time to present you with your Christmas gift, because your favorite desktop environment, Rocco, is Gnome, but it should be Xfce. I got you this ornament, and if you can read this, for those who are not watching the YouTube, the sign the Gnome is holding says what, Rocco? Can you read that?
It says, "I love Xfce."
There you go, my man. So there is your Christmas gift. Congratulations.
Oh, that's
a Gnome
awesome.
that's been converted to a real desktop.
You know where that's going to go. It's
It better go right back there.
It's going to go right back there.
All right.
Well,
enough fooling around, Rocco. We got to get serious here.
Yeah, go ahead.
So we've talked about contributing. We've talked about your, you know, how you've come about into this. Let's just leave it as, what is in the future for Xfce? What can people expect? What do you want to tell the people about Xfce?
For the most part, with contributors and whatnot, we're going to keep doing what we're doing. We're going to keep moving forward. Oftentimes you'll see posts, you know, oh, Xfce is dead. Oh, Xfce is back, you know, first updates in years. You know, we're very much alive. We're going to keep going. Xfce 4.14 is coming.
Nice.
And so is 4.16 or 5.0. You know, as we're moving forward, we're not going to stop. It's a great project, and people can just expect more.
Awesome.
Well, I just want to say that I just want to say thank you for all the work that you put into it. There are times, like I said, where I will bust on Xfce just because it's the easy thing to do because Ryan's sitting next to me. But I do appreciate all the hard work that every one of you guys on the team do. Definitely. Not just you in Xfce, but everybody in the Linux world who helps develop on their own time. You guys are not getting paid. You're doing it out of love for Linux, and I think that's awesome. So thank you very much, Sean.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Dude, we just had Sean Davis on. You had to grovel a little bit, and rightfully so, but I'm hoping the groveling is made up by
the Gnomester. That was such an awesome interview, though, man. It's so awesome to get to talk to the people behind the scenes, because whether or not I use Xfce or not, whether or not I use Ubuntu or not, these people are putting their time and effort into it, and you know, it's appreciated. That's why I think it's important that there's a way to contribute.
Yeah, I love that you brought that out. And when he was talking about it, was so interesting because he's, you know, talking about, hey, I've got a day job. I want to, you know, sometimes game. I want to sometimes relax.
Right.
Like he's got all the responsibilities of what everyone else has. Plus, he's taken on this responsibility. And you could imagine how many times, you know, he sees an article, or any developer for that matter, anybody who puts their content out there. We even have it sometimes, but where people critique your work or say nasty things, and you're like, dude, I'm doing this to help other people or to bring awareness for a specific thing, and people were beaten up on it. And I think it is important, you know, of course we can all joke and things like that, but it is important to appreciate. And that's one thing I love about you, that you always emphasize, is the appreciation, no matter if it's something you use or not. I appreciate the fact that somebody takes the time to do that kind of work. He clearly loves it. He's been in it for the long haul. You heard his journey from the beginning, and then just, you know, starting working on them. They kept giving him more and more things to work on. And I love his down-to-earth nature of, I took over Catfish and it was crap. And then it became a little less crap. And that is such a developer's way of looking at the world. You know, they're always their biggest critics.
I mean, whenever I started working with Catfish, I knew Python, but I didn't know a lot about Python. You know, I could build applications. You know, like you said, you know, I can get things running. I can figure them out.
Right.
So particularly if you look at Catfish's code base, it's gone from crap, or it's gone from okay, that was whenever I initially found it, to crap whenever I started working on it, to less crappy over the years.
Yep.
But he does fantastic work. People who use Xubuntu, who use Xfce, or Xfce and other distributions as well, they love it. And they fall in love with it, kind of like you said with your dad, with me and others. And some people, it's not for them, but that doesn't take away from how amazing it is.
And he's a gamer, and he plays Rocket League.
Boy, he's not seen nothing yet. The good news about playing with us is you can always win. So there's that.
Well, again, thank you to Sean Davis for coming on the show, and maybe soon we'll have him back on.
I hope so. It was awesome.
Well, stick around for the next couple weeks, because we definitely got some more exciting interviews coming, along with your favorite news and gaming news.
That's right. All kinds of exciting things, Rocco.
So a big thank you to each and every one of you for watching, listening, however you do it. We appreciate it. Have a great week. And remember, the journey itself is just as important as the destination.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Destination Linux podcast.
You should probably recognize him as producer Zeb, don't you think? I said he should recognize you as producer Zeb.
No, that's cool. I'm still learning the ropes. Oh, and Sean Davis is waiting. Did you not spot him, Rocco?
I did spot him. I was waiting for producer Zeb to let him in.
Hey,
this is double team Zeb week, is it?
What are we paying you for, Zeb?
Yeah, right? I mean, jeez.
All these big bucks.
What are we paying him anyway?
Big bucks.
Okay.
Hugs and kisses after the show.
Hugs and kisses.